Ladies and gentlemen, I am a gamer. And if you're watching this video, you're also probably a gamer. One thing that I have done consistently throughout my life was enjoy video games. From the Atari to the Super Nintendo, N64, even the Wii. I enjoyed the Wii. I got a Nintendo Switch. I got my Xbox right here, which is the topic of conversation today. We are looking at a video here. A guy did a video on the current interview that another guy did with Phil Spencer about the future of Xbox. I'm going to give my thoughts on it. He's going to give his thoughts on it, and we'll see what kind of conclusion we come to as far as what the future is.
It is Maddie here today, and we're sitting down to talk about the latest Phil Spencer interview. This one comes from Destin Legary, good buddy of mine. He's been here on the channel before. Very happy for him. He just went independent.
Yeah, go show love in the original content. Absolutely go show love. I'm sure it's in the link in his video. So I'll probably grab it and throw it down in the bottom of this one. Go give him some love.
So go ahead, check out the interview, link down below, support my man. But we got a lot of answers from Phil Spencer on the future of the Xbox business.
Yes, for once there's actually a linear decision made at Xbox because none of them were ever on the same page, and it was probably something that turned me away from Xbox the most. Now, granted, obviously, I still got my Xbox, his controller right here. Um, but yeah,
And if there's one thing I've always asked for from Xbox, it's just consistent messaging,
it's not like I haven't been playing Xbox for a long time.
clarifying any misunderstandings and marching forward with everyone basically saying a similar thing. Because what happens with Xbox a lot is you'll have Satya Nadella saying one thing, you'll have Amy Hood saying another, Tim Stewart saying something else, Matt Booty saying something else, you'll have Sarah Bond with her own thoughts, Phil with his own thoughts. And so ultimately it feels like mixed messaging. You don't really know where everyone fully stands. Like, are they united? Are they battling? Are they all trying to win over the consumer in different ways? You never really know. So marching forward here with this information, I think Phil cleared up a lot of misconceptions about the Xbox business. And there's no going back now, right? As I've talked about with previous Xbox videos, this multi platform push is in full effect. And Phil has really firmed up some of the rumors that have been surrounding Xbox as of late. So we're going to dive into this interview piece by piece, going to offer my thoughts. And we also have an article from The Verge by Tom Warren, which suggests that Xbox has much more happening beyond June. A lot of people get confused with my Xbox coverage, and I
This fucking showcase, this developer direct was insane. Dude, I was so fucking hyped watching this.
get it because the internet
Go check out my Doom reaction if you want to see my reaction to the Doom trailer or the developer direct, sorry.
exists in black and white, and I find myself in an area of nuance. I love Xbox's software push, and I've said that many times before, but I guess I should really make it extremely clear because I see people get extremely upset with me. But the software push is awesome. This year for Xbox fans will be amazing. When it comes to hardware, though, I can't stand it. And so we do get some good answers on hardware here, I think at least. And so we'll talk about both of them as well as what's coming up soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're
Okay?
into what's going on across the games industry, we got a
Subscribe to him, subscribe to me, most importantly, subscribe to yourself. Self-love is important these days.
PlayStation video coming out later this week. Be sure to subscribe, lock in here. Let's start off at the top with what's going on with shipping games on multiple platforms. Phil says, quote, "We are finding that our
We are finding that our games shipping on multiple platforms is a good thing for Xbox. Uh, it makes Xbox stronger. It lets us do shows like we did with Showcase. Uh-huh. Okay. Well, games being on other platforms didn't really have anything to do with the Showcase. I mean, I guess like maybe if you're acting as a platform and you're making money off of these games doing well, then I could see that you would like it to be on multiple platforms because then that opens up the opportunity of you making more money, which then you could flip into making a showcase. So, in a way, monetarily, it would eventually make sense if that's how their business model is set up. We are finding that our games shipping on multiple platforms is a good thing for Xbox. To a degree, I think that's a good idea, but I do think that you need to have some exclusives. I'm not saying all of your library needs to be exclusive to Xbox, but I do think there are core Xbox games that should be kept on Xbox. The whole point of that is because it guarantees that people come to your product for a certain game. Same way with PlayStation. However, PlayStation's been a little too greedy with their shit. Um, which is why a lot of people have been upset with PlayStation in the past few years, is because they've decided not to do any of that. Well, I can't say not do any of it because they did put God of War's on PC now, which I think is a fair like middle ground. If you wanted to start to broaden out your game, putting it on PC first is the definite best way to do that because you if you don't want people to lose the draw to buy your console, because like let's be honest, like consoles are for casual gamers. I don't know a single like proper gamer that games on console. Um, any other like I mean, we call it PC Master Race for a reason, and it's because it's literally the best platform with the best games and the best protections for consumer rights as far as um, being in a digital age. So yeah, so it's kind of yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about it. It's definitely one of those things. Like I could see like a Forza, like there's no reason Forza should be exclusive. Put it on the other platforms. Halo 100% should stay on Xbox. Absolutely no way, shape, or form should that be put on other platforms. That's your flagship fucking game. Uh, Granted, it's been ass because 343 has absolutely screwed the pooch for so many years, which is another problem that I might touch on later.
Games shipping on multiple platforms is a good thing for Xbox. It makes Xbox stronger. It lets us do
Just
the
as an
things like we
example.
did with the showcase, such as Developer Direct, and gives the teams the time that they need. End quote. And he confirms that there are games that have shipped and just won't reach other platforms. Others, they're going to wait and see, but they want their games to be played in places that people are going to play. And he's documented stats like Asia being their fastest growing region, and also their fastest growing hours on their platform across the board is actually on cloud. But the biggest takeaway was when Destin asked about Starfield, and Phil did say that Starfield has the potential to leave Xbox. He said he didn't want to put the gates up around any game, really. If they wanted to go multi-plat, they could. So it sounds like Xbox and their philosophy has shifted from we're not going to tell you you're going to do this, but developers have the option to go ahead and pursue that. And since
So Starfield is one of those things where um, the game had a high peak and then fell off massively and has never recovered because Bethesda has not put in the time to go in, fix things that were fucked up, which is some things you can't fix, like the story is ass. It's not written very well. There's no draw or intensity to it. It's very bland, it's very safe. Um, and that just does not tell a good story. And you're talking about a game that's competing with something like Outer Worlds. Like Outer Worlds fucking killed it. No Man's Sky is now killing it. Before, No Man's Sky was a laughing stock, but now can't sleep on it. Can't sleep on it. It's recovered well. Um, we're in a day and age where people care about the spectacle. They care about the draw, the intensity, the lore being intertwined into this amazing world. The only thing that it has going for it is one, the shipbuilding. Well, two things. And the graphical update for the game was great. It looks really good. Starfield as a game looks good, but yeah, it's just not it's not what it was hyped up to be. Everybody was expecting so much more. And then I kept seeing like people trying to get Bethesda like, oh, a Bethesda game is never as good out of the box as it is a few years down the road. That's not okay. If it isn't good out the box, then it doesn't fucking matter. It's a trash game. Okay? Throw it in the bin. Throw it in the bin. All right? It can be stuck in fucking gaming bargain hell for the rest of its life. Um yeah.
Developers typically want their game, they're artists, right? They want their games to be played by as many people as possible, are more than likely going to bring their
Also, its biggest numbers on Steam, because I know it had a huge explosion on Steam, and then it fell off massively, and now I think the only players that are there are people who are actively modding or using mods in the game.
games over to PlayStation or who knows, maybe even a Switch 2 now. Starfield has long been on my list of
This is what I'm talking about. You see this? This fucking guy just got shot twice. There's no blood. There's no holes representing where he got shot. It's very safe. It's very PG. It's very fucking. It's not the Bethesda that everybody knows. We're coming from a Fallout 76, which was a fucking disaster. We had before that, we had what else did we have? Um, I'm not counting any sort of Dooms because like the Dooms are like id Software doing their thing. Um, so Bethesda might be publishing it, but it isn't like a core Bethesda game like a Fallout or an Elder Scrolls. So I guess the last ones we had before that was Skyrim and Fallout 4. Both very gritty, very well told stories. Still had the openness that a Starfield does, but it doesn't have Starfield's safety nets. They went all in. They went all in on those games, and we see what happened with those games. I know people who still play fucking Skyrim. Granted, it's modded, but most of those mods that they use are basically to bring it up to the new age graphics. But aside from that, they still play consistent, and it's insane.
games that will leave Xbox sooner rather than later. If you asked me in 2023, of course my answer would have been completely different at that point, but now when you see what happened with 2024 and the numbers for Starfield that dwindled off, that game is in desperate need of a shot in the arm if Todd
Yep,
Howard's going to live up to his promise of annual updates for the game. And I
that's
know,
not
of course,
happening.
those updates will slow down.
If it
But
does,
right
it ain't
now, if you
great.
look at the Steam player base, even the Xbox player base, although with Xbox, in fairness, we don't have numbers, but we know it's not a highly played game, quite like it.
Yeah. Um, I'll pull that up real quick, actually. What are the current Starfield? Let's get the current numbers here. I'm gonna crop this down a little bit so you guys can see it better. Okay, so those are your current numbers. Past 7 days, 4,752, and I guarantee this is 100% modding. 100% Nexus is hard carrying this because like as a game itself, it's just not it's not great. It's so boring. Um, but yeah, look at that peak, 330,000. That would be good if the game was just better, but it's not. So,
Was originally leading into Starfield Shattered Space. Again, that DLC really hurt the hopes of a lot of people. So I think A new
Yeah, I
shot
didn't
in the
even
arm would
play it.
be bringing this to multiple platforms and announcing the next expansion alongside it. And I think that could get people at least looking in Starfield's direction, especially PlayStation fans who have held out and said, I'll play it in its best possible version when it arrives on PS5 Pro. But when Xbox loses their exclusives, a lot of people have argued, myself as well, that they're going to lose their brand identity. What exactly is Xbox's identity if they're going to give up Halo, Gears, and new IP that they built their
Facts.
box around in, like Starfield? Well, Phil in this interview claimed that the identity is always going to continue to evolve, and in a sense, that sort of change has always been part of their identity with things such as cross entitlement, kind of suggesting, like, hey, we were letting you play your games everywhere already, starting with Xbox and PC. And he thinks actually that the industry needs to share their identity to knock down the current business challenge.
No, the current business challenge isn't even really a challenge. It's just make good games. That's it. And only the West is struggling with this. By the way, only the West is struggling with making good games. Because Sony, as an Eastern company, has been fucking killing it. They've been absolutely demolishing Xbox for years now when it comes to publishing good games. Now, this year is probably the best chance that Xbox has to reclaim some of its former glory. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Challenges that everyone is facing. Now, I have some thoughts on this, but to get into that, one other thing that Phil said in this interview that caught my ear was when he responded to what Satya Nadella said, which was that they are at Microsoft redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan. And Phil stating, I don't know what Satya's feelings are on being an Xbox fan, but Phil says he doesn't feel it's up to him to define that, and everyone has their own approach to the ecosystem. And I did find that as an interesting way of thinking about it because if you asked me what does it mean to be, I guess, an Xbox fan, or why am I an Xbox fan, it would be because of the weird zany exclusives that started back on the original Xbox. Like, for God's sakes, I could pull off this shelf here in this Xbox category like a dozen random games that are absolutely absurd that would only have existed thanks to Xbox. And I feel like that spirit has continued on with games like even Hi-Fi Rush. When that came out, I was like, this is the Xbox exclusive that I know and love and grew up on. For me, it was everything from like Oddworld Munch's Odyssey to Death Row to Blinks the Time Sweeper to Voodoo Vince, and the list goes on. Just these random, absurd, amazing video games that I feel like Xbox is known for, and that heritage would continue. Let's rotate the shelf of Magic again all the way to the Xbox 360, where you had even dozens of more crazy Xbox exclusives there. It was basically a higher budget version of the original Xbox. So you had that same weird and zany sort of library, but with bigger budgets, bigger games. So you got just crazier combinations. It was awesome. So that to me is what made me an Xbox fan. And when Phil says, well, it's always been part of our identity to kind of grow our ecosystem, put our games everywhere, I'm like, yes, but we all know it was.
I don't believe that's the case, to be honest. I really don't. I believe they had the same sort of identity PlayStation did in the fact that growing its brand was simply putting out good games. That's what Xbox's identity used to be. And and the facts are there. I mean, you can simply just go back in the logs. A majority of people who hopped on Xbox because of Halo. They hopped on Xbox because of the exclusive games. I started fucking I was a Gran Turismo guy until I started playing Forza. And now I'm a Forza fucking stan. Okay? Um so the thing though about that, right, is if you again go back and look at the history of the exclusives to Xbox, Gears of War has let you down. It's not great. Franchise is not as hot as it was. The last Gears that I played to completion was Gears of War 4, and it had some of the sickest gameplay I've ever enjoyed from the Gears franchise. Um, Halo. Another one that has gone terribly, mainly due to Xbox's mismanagement. They didn't go into 343 and absolutely gut the place when they should have and got quality fucking people working there. That way, Halo can make a resurgence. But now it's got such a stain on its identity. I don't even know if you put out a new Halo, I don't know how well it would do because you completely ruined the public opinion on that game. So, and same thing with Forza. Forza had the same issue. Forza 5 did not hit very well with fans. Um, Mainly due to the fact that nobody's listening to the fans. We wanted Japan. We kept saying Japan, 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 Japan. Um, and then we got Mexico. And it's like, all right, this is cool, but like we wanted Japan. So, and overall, that game would have been fine, but it was not tweaked or balanced correctly at all. If you didn't have a Koenigsegg Jesko, you just weren't competitive at all in that game. Even on like casual things, like if you and your buddies were just trying to get the longest launch off a ramp, literally the only car that you could use is the Jesko. Nothing else was even close. And that's not something that you can do. I mean, I was beating my friends doing doing the rally tracks, and all I did was take a Jesko and put rally tires on it and an all-wheel drivetrain. That's it. That's all I needed to do. I didn't change anything else. I just put rally tires on a fucking Jesko and I beat them. And they were using actual rally cars. They're using Evos. They're using Subarus. And I just went in there with a Jesko and it's so dumb. Um, yeah. So that was a huge problem for that game. And one problem was it did have a really bad launch. Just overall, wasn't a game that you could even play. The fucking multiplayer was crashing all the time and it was just constant like lag issues. Yeah, the frames were terrible. So there's a plethora of issues that killed that game for a lot of people. But yeah, the main thing about Xbox lately has been they have not put out good games. So I think honestly, if the past 10 years of Xbox was right up there with Sony, was right up there with PC, and these indie developers, as far as the Elden Rings, the Baldur's Gate 3s, the PAL worlds of the world, right? If they were putting out banger games like that, this interview would have went 100% better and all the Xbox community would have been backing him hard. And some of them are. But I'm just saying 95% probably would be backing him here, but because their reputation in the public eye has been absolutely shattered, most people are against it. And I agree. I agree. You got to look within, fix your shit, and then you can go out making big promises.
Was within reason. And I'll go back to what I've always said about the economics of game development is that while I get where Phil's coming from, and I think it's a fair point that, hey, the industry needs to evolve and start breaking down these walled gardens to sell more copies, it's chasing this arbitrary sense of growth that's going to undoubtedly hit a brick wall again because eventually you're going to be everywhere. You're going to be on phones, TVs, you're going to be on consoles.
See, the problem with this is it's the wrong line of thinking. Being everywhere means nothing if you don't put out good games. Because you could be on everything, but nobody's going to play your game still because it's an ass game. It's terrible.
You're gonna be on PC, you're gonna be everywhere, right? But games, people are already paying what they don't realize is a cheap price for them. Games used to be $100 back then. They got cheaper. Now we're seeing rumors of like GTA 6 maybe charging $100 in the industry, hoping they can.
Which is absolutely fucking terrible, by the way. GTA 6 should not be allowed to charge $100. Because I guarantee you, and I'm probably going to make a video on this at some point, GTA 6, because like GTA 5 is highly predatory toward getting you to spend money on shark cards. We're talking about, for the easiest example, you guys can go look this up. And if you're still playing GTA 5, you can also look this up in game. Go to the fucking Warstock site and you can get a police car, which is a Crown Victoria equivalent IRL, and that car cost almost 4 million in-game dollars. To put it in perspective, the brand new Banshee GTS, which is a Dodge Viper, essentially a supercar, only cost a little under 2 mil. How the fuck does that work? There's no way, shape, or form a police interceptor Crown Victoria in any realm or world should cost double the price of a Dodge Viper. Doesn't make sense. So already the pricing inconsistency is there, but the reason why those things are super, super expensive is because they need you to buy those shark cards. So they're creating a problem and then giving you the solution. I completely disagree with that. I think 100% of microtransactions should be optional, especially if you're going to make me pay for your game. If you want to be as predatory as you are in GTA 6, as you are in GTA 5, put the game out for free. I saw how much they raked in with shark cards. They don't need to even charge for the game, and they'll make their money back tenfold. So, what are we talking about? There's no point. Now, for other games, that business model won't work. But normally, it's like a gotcha game, and it's fucking a massive waste of time and money and effort. Whereas GTA is going to give you a massive amount of content, and I'm assuming they're probably gonna do the same sort of model they set up for GTA Online for GTA 6 as well. Because, like, obviously, I don't think the online is gonna launch at the same time as the story. No shot. You're gonna get it. You're gonna get a story mode game. You're gonna play through it. It's gonna tide you over for a while, and then you will get a um, and then we will get the GTA Online with the GTA 6 map because they're going to use the story as like a way to survey, player feedback on like who they like, who they don't like. That's why you get a Franklin. That's why you get a Lamar. That's why you get a little cameo from Michael. That's why you get that's why all these things are added to online. And it's because player feedback. It's the people who we gravitated toward from the story.
Can do that so everyone can move their prices up again. And while I understand letting artists be artists, I do think the root of the industry's economic issues goes down to development timelines. And that will, of course, exponentially inflate your budget. Of course, marketing goes into that as well. I'm just talking development fees.
So I'm sure that plays a role, but I do believe that there is an underlying mismanagement issue. Because, like, let's look at like an Ubisoft, for example. Ubisoft, and the reason why they're failing is because one, they'll never get the money back for Assassin's Creed Shadows because they've already wasted too much money on the game, and they've also wasted too much money on things that are not important to the average gamer. Um, So when I look at these companies, right, and they have massive fucking like HR departments and massive fucking um like little agencies that kind of work with the company. I'm just wondering where is the budget going? If I'm paying $100 for this game, how much of the $100 is going back to you as a developer, as somebody who is trying to create this vast world, and how much money is it going to those agencies that you hired on that you've completely thrown away budget for no reason on, and you could have simply worked a little bit harder and not had to have worried about that at all. So fundamentally it comes down to a mismanagement issue.
And there is a way to shrink down costs, and it's by making smaller, tighter games that people actually have time to complete multiple of in a year. And especially if you're Xbox, who we see how many games they're putting out this year. That's why I find it all a little bit strange, because Xbox delayed Avowed last year because they said, we want you to be able to play more games and in respect for your library. And then they proceed to go, here's Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. In March, you have Fragpunk and Atomfall on Game Pass. And then, of course, April is going to be really interesting because you have South of Midnight, you have Claire Obscure, Expedition 33. May, you have Doom the Dark Ages. And as we'll get into, we also have a lot of rumored titles for Xbox still unconfirmed for 2025, but again, heavily rumored. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So as much as I do like Phil, I do think he has a habit of kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth a little bit. And so
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that. And I also think like this is kind of a rush year, right? If you have a game planned for release in 2025, it has to be an absolute fucking banger because if Rockstar stays with the timeline, they're 100% stealing this year. Game Awards next year, Rockstar, if they get GTA 6 out, it's 100% winning game of the year. There's no say otherwise. It's literally the biggest game that people have been waiting for over 10 years.
he's saying one thing, doing another. And I think it's the same thing with like Avowed again with that delay, like saying one thing, doing another, where I find it hard to believe that, this idea of this dramatic shift in the Xbox identity is, quote, always what it's been. Like, this is what we've always been doing. Like, there's a difference between in 2017 you saying, or 2016 you saying, we're bringing Xbox games to PC. Like, that was an interesting step because
Mm.
Windows was
Another thing that I didn't touch on, which I do want to touch on now, it does bother me that Phil doesn't know what his Xbox identity is. Like he doesn't know his reason for loving Xbox as a brand because of the way that he kind of talked. He didn't talk around the point, but he kind of gave a non-answer as far as like his personal beliefs. Uh, he just kind of moved the answer to, "Oh, what does the community think?" And that's not the answer I want to hear. I want to hear your answer. What do you think Xbox is? Like, why did you get in the Xbox? Why are you passionate about this company? If you're going to lead a company, you got to have some degree of I give a fuck about this place. And it really just didn't seem like he did.
there. So it kind of made sense for Xbox and Windows to come together. Like, that ecosystem makes sense. But for Xbox to say, hey, it's part of our identity to bring our games everywhere, so we're going to put these highly touted exclusives on PlayStation. It's like, I wish he would have just outright said, like, we need to sell more games. And he kind of says it a little bit with the current business challenge, but he's kind of saying that other companies are going to face the challenges they're facing. And I think
I don't think that's the case. I really don't because Sony has been releasing very quality games, so they have had no problem. I mean, fuck, I got Black Myth Wukong on fucking Sony. Like, I don't have it on Xbox. And another thing, why are we still putting out the Xbox Series S? Like, what are we talking about? I get that Xbox wants to be this all-inclusive shit, right? But it's only $200 more to get the Series X. And a lot of the people that have the Series X, they also got a fucking or the Series S, they also got a PlayStation 5 or a Switch. So they clearly have the money to get it eventually. So it's just like why are we wasting time, wasting hardware on these freaking things? And I want to make it clear. Yeah, I have a Series S. I have a Series S. And I just don't I do I see it as a complete net loss. Like why are we wasting time on a Series S console? Just put out the Series X and that's it. Okay, just like PlayStation puts out the PS5, all right? Put out the Series X Okay, put one out with a disk drive, put one in that's all digital, and that's it. Simplify the business model, make sales numbers. Okay, because eventually you can get them cheaper at a pawn shop. You can get them cheaper at a thrift store, secondhand, online on Facebook, eBay, Amazon. They're always sales for consoles. So it's not like you can never get one. Yeah, sure, maybe you're not financially as well off as some other people, but eventually you will get one. Let's be real.
PlayStation might be up next. We'll talk about that in our upcoming video, but their games are selling at an interesting clip where they have a lot of hardware out there, they have a lot of games out there, and now they're in a stalling period where all of their studios are reloading to fire off for probably a new generation. Because at the end of the day, these decisions are what will define Phil Spencer's legacy and in turn Xbox. And the reason it is important to note that is because this will be the man who's known for either saving or killing Xbox as we know it. But right now, the headlines are in Phil's favor. He could be clairvoyant, as it says Microsoft was the #1 games publisher in the world last month, with $465 million spent on Microsoft games over December across PlayStation, PC.
That's according to data from Ampere. It includes sales of Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which was one of the biggest games over the holiday period. It also includes the release of Indiana Jones and The Great Circle. I don't know what The Great Circle is, but I do know Indiana Jones did pretty decent and Call of Duty Black Ops 6, so that makes sense.
And Xbox. This was according to the data firm Ampere, and it does include the sales for both Black Ops 6 and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. But interestingly, the stat shows that 64% of consumer spending on Microsoft titles in December was on PlayStation, driven by Call.
Well, duh. Call of Duty has been a massive, massive game. And Call of Duty used to call PlayStation home. So, you know, a lot of people on PlayStation are still gonna buy Call of Duty. Um, I'm just, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense because this is the first time these titles are going to hit other platforms that they will probably pop off initially. So you'll have a bunch of PlayStation people who've never played Gears who are probably gonna give it a shot. Same thing with Forza. Same thing with Halo. It will drive sales, I think, initially, but I do think the fall off is still going to be there only because they haven't been putting out quality games. But like we've already seen in the video and I've discussed, they do have a big year here this year. So maybe that turns around.
Call of Duty. Now, I don't want to lean Omega into these numbers because we know Call of Duty is going to inflate everything. It's such a
True.
powerful seller, but it's showing that Xbox is cashing in big time through this transition. And despite people like me and others out there discussing heavily, what you've got here is a company making more money than they ever have. And as I've said multiple times, 2025 will be a year Xbox makes possibly their most money ever when it comes to selling.
So I think the biggest tell for this is going to be give it 3 years. Let the initial draw of these exclusives going over kind of fizzle out, and then it'll give you a baseline of what the average is going to be. Because like right now, it's going to be inflated. So once the exclusives are typical to going on PlayStation and going on PC and going on Nintendo, then we kind of know, okay, that this is about the average of what they're going to get out of this. But my prediction is that they are going to get big short-term income and then they are going to have an average net loss because it really is going to depend on the game. If you make a game that everybody wants to play, everyone is going to buy it and it doesn't matter what platform they are on. But this again is back to the root of the issue. Xbox has not been putting out good games. So you have to create a demand. And the demand for Xbox is publish and make great games and then go with this everywhere business model.
Software. Phil also defended the Xbox Series S. This has long been a target this generation, saying it's underpowered. I've always argued it comes down to developer talent. Many developers have said the same thing. But one thing that was interesting that I'd never considered before is how the Series S does have comparable specs to a Steam Deck or to a ROG Ally, even where they're floating around the same area. Obviously, not.
Problem with that is the difference between the Rogue Ally and the Steam Deck is the fact that you can take it anywhere. It's the typical hardware of a handheld console that is not something that you can take around wherever you want to take it. There's no screen on this frickin' Series S. Okay, I can't just pick it up like a Nintendo Switch and play some Call of Duty, you know. uh, so I see it as a complete waste of time. Now, I don't believe they should completely throw the concept out. I do believe in making a budget version, but make it a handheld. Maybe you make a little handheld that has a little docking system. That would be sick. I can get behind that, and they did tease something like that. I do remember they did tease something like an Xbox handheld. I think that should be the replacement for the Series S, and then you focus solely on the Series X, the most powerful console you can make, and then you can make the budget Series S or whatever into the handheld that you can dock and essentially play games like a console.
Not exactly the same, but Phil says that over time, especially, the
That's the
Series S
smart
will
way to
be
do it.
a great target because it's one of those moments where one size fits all. Like, oh, you can work it on the Steam Deck, then maybe you could work it on your Series S. At least that's sort of the mentality he seemed to be suggesting. But in all of this, he did state that there's no plans to drop the parity clause for the Xbox Series S, which I thought was really interesting because Xbox has missed on two big games at launch because of it in Baldur's Gate 3 and apparently Black Myth Wukong. He did defend it by saying, hey, look, Indiana Jones is a game that's pushing tech and it runs really well. And I do think that's a fair point of defense, but one thing that really sucks if you're like a core Xbox owner and you don't have the other systems is Xbox does sometimes strangely miss out on some of the biggest releases. Again, Baldur's Gate 3, them getting that game 4 or 5 months later was really a stinger, I think. And obviously, as a business, they miss out on a ton of money there. But what is good beyond the big budget games is that Phil did confirm they're going to continue to invest in indie games. He says that they don't want just an industry of $200+ million games. And so he did mention that they're very proud of the amount of
That I will absolutely back them on. That's phenomenal.
games they've just funded with Game Pass deals. That's something that I've heard a lot about in the indie scene is that just Game Pass can provide you all the development funding that you really need where companies are kind of like zeroed out.
I will be I'm trying to be as I'm a bit passionate, right? Because like Xbox is the console that I would say I rely on the most because I do have my PS5, but I don't play it hardly ever. Except for because I got like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero on there. I have mostly single player games, God of War, Black Myth Wukong, stuff like that. Probably get into Final Fantasy at some point. Um, but I have a history of not finishing games, so um, I think the last game that I finished was Cyberpunk 2077. That was the last one I finished, and I got the Sun ending, which was so fucking awesome, by the way. Weird tangent. Anyway, the point is, I have a lot of passion for Xbox as a platform, and I want to see it do well. But I do believe that there are missteps being taken when you need to fix the internal things before you go to expand to external things. And I do believe the Series S is a massive waste of time. It's a massive waste of time. It's a massive waste of money. Convert the Series S into a handheld, a docking handheld, just like the Switch, okay? And then as you're going up in generation of console, you can put out a new handheld version. And that handheld version will be the budget option for people. Um, Granted, Again, it may not get the greatest, greatest games, but it'll at least give people the option to play some of the decent, name titles that are going to come out.
going into launch, and it's kind of raw profit from there. If you really
Oh, and I will absolutely back them when it comes to the funding of the indie studios. Absolutely, let's get their name out there. Two, Game Pass was a phenomenal leap forward for Xbox. I would just like to see them get back to what made them great to begin with before we start looking toward the future.
strategize your game well, that's kind of where you can end up. And that's a really good position to be in where indie projects are scaled in a way that I think AAA should kind of model themselves after, of course, just on a slightly bigger level where, again, they're scoped in a way of less is more, smaller teams, contracting very selectively.
Yeah, I mean, look at Power World. Look at Power World. They're doing phenomenal on every platform they've been on.
It's a much more heavily managed process.
Even with Nintendo trying to bully them, which fuck you, Nintendo. Like, I don't know why Japan is so freaking weird about IP. They're so insanely weird about IP. Like it's something that I don't fathom because like obviously being born in America, like you almost have no IP rights here in America. Like the only like true like assholes about IP in America is like music companies. They're the only ones who like are complete douches. And even then they've been getting more and more lenient because it's literal free marketing. We have a free marketplace here in the US. Like, and I'm not trying to be like the patriot. Oh, free everything here in the U.S. Your country doesn't have that. I'm not trying to be that guy, but we are those type of people. Like, I don't understand why you would you would say no to free advertising.
But I think it pays out really well. But greed, money, you know what I'm talking about, right? But it's cool to see that indie is going to continue to be a focus for them. And by that I mean like indie video games, not Indiana Jones, though I hope there is more indie, of course. But the last thing, which will bring us into the Tom Warren report, is that Phil says there are many games beyond what's been announced for 2025. We already know the run up to about May/June, but when it comes to the rest of the year, we have a lot of candidates, right? We have Fable, we have The Outer Worlds 2, Gears E-Day, Contraband. We have Clockwork Revolution. There's a lot of games. Of course, your annual Call of Duty. I'm probably forgetting some. Like Xbox has a absurdly stacked year, and that's not even getting into the rumored ports happening this year. Gears, Halo, Starfield, Hellblade, Microsoft Flight Simulator. Like this year, Xbox might make the most money they ever have. But Phil says that there are more games coming this year. What could those games be? Well, Tom Warren of The Verge wrote this: Microsoft's Xbox Summer Showcase will then set the stage for the rest.
Okay, hold on. They got a summer showcase. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent lineup. My biggest thing is that they remaster of the Elder Scrolls 4. I'm gonna be honest. There's probably some people that are gonna play the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, but not near as many that are gonna play the Sky Oblivion release that the modders have been working on, just because like that's something that we in the Elder Scrolls community have kind of left Bethesda behind when it comes to Elder Scrolls content. Obviously, when they start hyping up GTA 6 and it becomes more, or GT, Jesus Christ, Elder Scrolls 6, and it becomes um, more of a tangible thing, then obviously we're all gonna flock to that. But till that point,
Rest of the year and beyond. Ninja Gaiden 4, there is one I forgot, is coming this fall. But Microsoft has also previously announced The Outer Worlds 2 and Fable are 2025 releases. It will also be interesting to see if Gears of War E-Day will make the 2025 release date I'd heard Microsoft was planning for last year. There
Like I said earlier too, anything that releases this year has to release before GTA 6, which is 100% probably going to come in the fall. I don't think it comes any sooner than that.
Could be some more surprises on the way, too. In recent weeks, rumors have pointed toward a remaster of The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. I first heard about this remaster last year, and at the time, Microsoft was tentatively targeting a release in late spring or early summer 2025. I'm also hoping we hear more about Contraband or Clockwork Revolution at the summer showcase. So, the main takeaway here is that by the halfway point in the year, we're going to likely have in our hands the Oblivion, he's calling it remaster. So now we're getting conflicting, terminology here. Man, I just got to see this game and know what's going on. But Oblivion remaster, we're seeing Oblivion at the midpoint of the year, which I thought when this all first kind of leaked, like, oh, this is an easy holiday title. Like, go cash in your money right there. But this is going to be a midpoint game after a flurry of releases. And I'm starting to think that the goal for Xbox this year is to see what happens with Game Pass if they have monthly big releases. If they can pull that off. I mean, they'd have to get third party involved, but can they pull that off? And will it keep you engaged month after month where maybe they don't lose subscribers with Game Pass, especially when they saw a surge through Call of Duty? So do they keep the Call of Duty subscribers? They're like, hey, every single month we got something new for you. But to see E-Day on this list, Coalition does have a habit of announcing and then a year later releasing. And Coalition has been gone for a while. The last time we saw them in a proper manner was really Hivebusters with the next gen update at the launch of the Series X. We, of course, also saw them show up with things like the Matrix Unreal Engine 5 demo. They did have a canceled project at one point. This team's been spinning their wheels for a while, and everyone thought they'd be working on Gears 6 because I won't spoil, but the way Gears 5 ends, you're like, yeah, there's more story to be told, but I do think they wrote themselves into a bit of a corner and a choice they did not want to make. And so they went back to the very essence of Xbox with Dom and Marcus. And speaking of the essence of Xbox, it was then confirmed that People Can Fly, who developed Gears of War Judgment, is co-developing alongside the Coalition for this project, which I think is great. That's getting in touch with the Xbox heritage. Same thing with Ninja Gaiden, bringing back Team Ninja, tapping Platinum Games, who was very openly selling themselves out to Xbox, on the shoulder and seeing what they could do. Bringing this together and then completely funding the game is exactly what I want to see from Xbox to make these impossible games possible. Something like a Ninja Gaiden 4, I never really expected. Gears is awesome. We expected that, but to go back to Marcus and Dom is really cool. Hopefully, there is a really strong story to tell there. I only say that because obviously I love these characters, but are the stakes lowered when you know the fate of everyone because of how Gears would trend into the fifth game? I digress. There is a long list of video games that are going to come out for Xbox this year, and The Outer Worlds 2 being dated for 2025 is insane to me. This is a stacked year for them, and I think Fable can't slip either. I think if any of these three slip, it might be Gears E-Day. But does Xbox go for like the 1, 2, 3, 4 punch of like month to month? You get The Outer Worlds 2, Fable, Gears, and Call of Duty. That's an insane holiday window. That's tough to compete with. I mean, Xbox is turning into the biggest publishing label on the planet. If they're putting this many games out this year, you really got to think about it and their game plan and just how it's going to pay out in the terms of money earned. I always said that when people were like, Xbox is dying, I think people would always misunderstand what I said when Xbox is dead. It's like Xbox as you know it is dead. Xbox as the brand I grew up with and you grew up with is dead. They have completely pivoted away from that. But Xbox as a brand and a business will likely make more money than ever before. So I'm interested to see at the end of 2025 where Xbox stands, but no doubt I'll be getting more use out of my console this year. So ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on what's going on here with the business.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how these releases go. Literally, the releases are everything this year for Xbox. If these games do not absolutely kill it, then they will be looked at as the joke of the gaming industry. And if they do kill it, then everybody will be on the Xbox hype train. It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. That has been it from me. This is Mr. Matty Plays. First time I've watched a video from his channel. It was a phenomenal video. So go give him a sub, give him a like. Make sure you sub to me. Most importantly, subscribe to yourself. Self love is important these days, and I almost butchered that. I'm gonna get out of here. Okay, bye bye.